I want to call the meeting to order tonight. Thank you for those that in the audience that have chosen to join us. Please stand with us as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to ask Dan if he would read the school board norms for us this evening.
The board developed norms are to share and respect varied opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, to prudently prioritize resources in a student-centric manner that aligns with the district's strategic plan, to exhibit a mindset of continuous improvement through adequate preparation for meetings and a commitment to board education, and to commit to assessing board effectiveness to ensure high-quality governance for the staff, students, and community of Jamestown.
Thank you. And now at this point, item C is public communication. And I believe Mr. Cody Mickelson has something for us tonight.
Good evening. Most of you know me, but my name is Cody Mickelson, and I teach at the high school, and I also serve as the president of Jamestown Education Association. And I really just wanted to come tonight to just talk a little bit about policy, or item number 7A on your agenda, which was the parental leaves policy that are up for second reading tonight and will hopefully be approved. I didn't originally anticipate speaking at the board meeting on this. I did send some correspondence to the last meeting and hope that you all received that. But being as the agenda is fairly lengthy tonight and there are a lot of things that get approved at this July meeting, I didn't want to understate or have understated the gratitude and the appreciation that there is among the teaching staff for the parental leaves policy and the process that there was for creating that. And so just in case you're not familiar with the history of that, during the last negotiations session, JEA had approached the board with a proposal that we viewed as just very vague, and we wanted to have a conversation about the maternity, paternity, adoption leaves that our current policies had. And while those leaves have great intentions behind them, they didn't necessarily reflect the needs of the teachers that were utilizing them at this point. And having gone through the use of those policies in my own household as of recently, I can see how much better we've tried to make things with this, and I hope that it will be. So I think that just giving some sort of praise to the process that we went through. I know that there was a lot of discussion that we couldn't have otherwise had during an adversarial negotiating session, and I think it was a good conversation between the JEA reps and the central office reps, as well as for the school board. And I can't understate how great of a benefit this will be to our teaching staff at when that stage in their life may come. And I hope that even making us a more attractive employer in general, it certainly will make being an employee of Jamestown Public Schools just that much better than it already is. And we'd like to make sure that we continue on the path of moving forward. I wouldn't be me if I didn't get a little dig in here to say I didn't get everything I wanted out of this policy, and that's the way the process was supposed to work. You know, there's a bunch of people there to tell me I was wrong. You know, I think I'm right a lot, but I'm wrong a lot too. But it was a really open conversation. I think Dr. Larson and Dr. Leck will attest to that, and Sally, I think, as well. There were lots of good questions, and we have to thank Sally for sending her on the wild goose chase that we did every week to find something out that, you know, we didn't know the answer to. But I would say that this is a process that I think worked pretty well, and we'd like just to see more utilization of the communications committee to solve problems that we can tackle between negotiations, because at that table there certainly are other motives that come out and there's a lot of emotion, and I think that this is a good way to take that emotion and channel it to something useful that we can all agree on by the time we get to a negotiation session. So going back to saying that I didn't get everything I wanted, that doesn't mean that, you know, these policies are final and done. I think everybody at the table realized, let's see how these work, and we'll come back and revisit them at that time, and we look forward to doing so. So I just wanted to give my praises to the hopeful approval of that second reading, and I hope that you see the benefits as a district as well as we do as a teaching staff. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Cody. And I just want to add to that, this process has really been a positive thing, and I appreciate working with the teachers and the staff and the board to come to those kind of conclusions, as you said, ahead of negotiations, yes, but more than that, the fact that we can just come together, have some meetings, come to an agreement. Everybody doesn't get what they want, but everybody leaves happy with what they got. And I think that that's how this ended up. So I hope that process, and I know that it will continue, and it will make us a much better and stronger district. So thank you for coming and sharing tonight. Okay, next item is old business, which we can take under consent agenda. If there's anything specifically someone wants to pull off and discuss, we can do that, but I would be open to a motion. Motion by Gail, second by Aaron. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3, we do have a student recognition tonight, and we'd like to have Isaac come forward, and I've asked Gail to read that for us this evening.
Thank you. Isaac Bayer is a 2-year Skills USA member serving as JVCTC chapter president for the 21-22 school year. In that role, Isaac diversified and reshaped the marketing model for the school store, developed agendas for meetings, chaired fundraising events, and assisted in CTE month activities. Isaac attended and competed in this year's National Skills USA Leadership Conference competition, placing first in individual carpentry. There, Isaac networked and collaborated with other North Dakota chapter officers to brainstorm and plan future Skills USA events at local and state levels. The first place finish at the state competition punched his ticket to nationals at Atlanta, Georgia, June 20th through the 25th. Although Isaac did not place, he collaborated with many Skills USA members across the country and networked with industry partners of Snap-on Tools, Channel Lock, and Ariat International. Isaac learned how other Skills USA chapters from other states are growing. Last year, Isaac participated in CTE programming at the JVCTC in the area of building trades and aviation. He currently works at the airport fueling planes and performing light maintenance on planes. Moving forward, Isaac plans to pursue a career in aviation. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's just awesome. And thank you for the plane safety. I do fly out on those once in a while, and I appreciate you taking care of us there. Thank you. The next item on the agenda has to do something about someone, so I'm going to just turn this over to Heidi and let her do her thing.
The agenda item is board recognition of Mr. Greg Allen. Greg Allen was elected to the Jamestown School Board in June of 1994 and has provided a total of 28 years of service to the Jamestown Public School District. This commitment represents the longest service of any school board member in the history of Jamestown School District. Mr. Allen has worked in partnership with 5 superintendents, dozens of administrators, and hundreds of teachers to positively impact the outcomes for thousands of students. He has served alongside 32 board members and helped to lead the district throughout many changes, including the transition to a new high school and a renovated middle school project, and even the green space over here as well. I remember that. And I believe he is also a mentor to myself and Steve Veldkamp and many other board members along the way. Mr. Allen has led the school board as president for 9 of his 28 years, which includes serving on or leading countless committees. His measured, contemplative, and passionate voice in support of public education has been unwavering. Mr. Allen has been an active member of the North Dakota State School Board Association with 6 years on the statewide board, including Southeast Director, President, and past President, along with other commitments. He has also distinguished himself nationally as a North Dakota delegate to the National School Board Association and committee member. The Jamestown School Board would like to formally commend Greg Allen's outstanding commitment to the staff and students of Jamestown Public Schools and the community of Jamestown. You can go ahead and open it and show. Go ahead and open it. Oh, yeah, the box at least.
Well, wow. I mean, that is awesome. And serving 28 years, it has been good. I do not regret 1 year or anything. It has been good in serving with so many different boards and teachers and different things. Probably one of the biggest challenges is serving with some of the crazy superintendents I had to serve with. Understandable. No. It has been great, and I tell you, it's hard to leave because it's good. I actually receive energy from these types of things, and to be able to help the district, help the students, and do what I can to assist that process has really been rewarding. And I know that the work is going to continue because we've got a very diverse group, but yet we have a group that's knowledgeable and a group that wants to do what is in the best interest of the district. And even though I'll leave and I'll have some sleepless nights thinking about you guys sitting here till 2 in the morning trying to hash out a policy, but I do wish you all the best, and I pray that God's help will continue to help you in all that you do. So with that, before I get too emotional, I think at this point, and it does not always happen when the president is the one that's being unseated, I'm going to ask the Vice President, Heidi, if she will take over the meeting from this point forward.
Thank you, Greg. Moving on our agenda, we're looking at seating of our new board members. Is there a motion for president? Oh, wait, seating, we have to do those first, right? Okay, we have to bring Steve Veldkamp up first. And Steve is the write-in candidate for the rural position, and we welcome Steve and thank him for serving on the board. Also, Dan Tweeten was elected. Dan was an appointed member, if you remember. Oh, yeah, so I don't forget who I am. Thank you. Appointed to complete a term, and Dan has now been elected to a full 4-year term. And Jason Rohr and myself also were reelected to the board. Good. Moving on to the election of officers for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion for President Gail?
I move that Heidi Larson be elected our board president.
Is there a second? Second. Second by Jason. Motion by Dan, second by Jason. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, nominations, I did that wrong. Okay, let's back that up. We have a nomination.
I'd like to make a motion. Do I do that now, or do we have to do?
Is it for president?
I'd like to make a motion to elect Aaron Roberts for president.
You'd like to make a nomination? Is that, okay.
Yes.
Are there any other nominations?
Yes.
We got you.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay, yep, I apologize, I did that wrong. We don't need a second for the nominations, we just need nominations, so. So we have two. So Sally will take over this part.
Okay. Oh, we have to have, God, I was not ready for this. So we have to have ballots? I need some help. Sorry, I was not ready for this. I was just thinking. This is good. That's okay, it's gonna be. You got something. How many you got, Amy?
And their name. Okay, on the piece of paper, you can, at the top, you can even just put number 1 and write your name on. And then number 2, put the 2 nominations are Heidi Larson and Aaron Roberts. You can write who you are voting for. And then Sally will collect these and tally them and read them all out loud. Yeah, and it's, you know.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Heidi Larson is the board president, voted 5-1.
Thank you for your, thank you. I look forward to the next year. Now we need nominations. I'll get this right the second time. Now we need nominations for
Oh,
is that-
Melissa,
Melissa.
your vote.
I'd like to nominate Aaron Roberts for vice president.
Okay, and I didn't collect your vote for, I'm sorry, Melissa, we were writing them. Your vote for president? because it doesn't matter.
Yes. Oh,
No,
sorry.
never mind.
I'm sorry, I thought that was done already.
Okay, we'll move on.
Gail, go ahead.
I move to nominate Jason Rohr for vice president.
We have Aaron, Jason, so far for nominations for vice president. Any other nominations for vice president? Any other nominations for vice president? I'd like to nominate Dan Tweeten also for vice president, if you're willing to accept a nomination. Okay. So we have Aaron, Jason, and Dan so far. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? And we do the same thing. You put your name as one and who you're voting for as two.
Nope, I got it.
So yeah, put your name as one, and the three nominations are Jason, Aaron, and Dan.
Oops, I should get that. Okay. And Melissa, who was your wish for vice chair?
Tell her the three. So she can No, well,
So it was Dan Tweeten and Jason Rohr
and Aaron.
and Aaron Roberts. Melissa?
Aaron.
Okay. Okay, Dan is vice president. 2 for Aaron, 3 for Dan, and 2 for Jason.
Well, I'll email you the list of responsibilities. So thank you for your willingness to serve as well. Moving on in our agenda, any conflicts of interest to declare for the agenda? Okay, moving on. There's a list to schedule for a set date, time, and place of regular meetings. Did everyone see that? We're going to need a motion to approve that today. Motion by Gail. Second by Steve. Any discussion? Yes, Jason?
I just want to throw out the idea of, I understand the importance of a set time and date and, place for continuity. I would just like to see us do some kind of outreach to each building at least once this year, whether that's a full board meeting or whatnot. I would like to see us in every building at least once this year, and if we could make that happen.
I think it's a great idea, Jason. Dr. Leck, did you want to comment
I
further?
did, thank you. You're reading my mind because that's something that we talked about doing. Amy and I have already started some discussions around what that could look like. So that is either doing something similar to what we did today, where we may meet at a certain building from 4 to 5 or 4:30 to 5:30 or 5 o'clock or whatever, and then we come back here. Not every building has a space that would have the capacity, but if we can organize something like that, I think that's a great idea to get everybody in a building, or get every meeting in a building.
And I appreciate the work of the facilities group so far. Aaron and Jason on that. And I also appreciate the pictures that they give us for the updates, because I'm a visual person. I like to see what they're actually doing. But I think also once we get some of this done too, I think it's good to get around to those buildings and see it in person. So that's a great idea. So we have a motion, a second, and discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Dr. Beck?
I'm sorry, one thing I forgot to mention, it's certainly okay for us to approve the Thompson Community Room, and if there's other changes that will come, you'll just approve those as part of a revision to the schedule. So we'll work on something to organize the different locations, and then we'll put that out as, back for the board.
E, set school board compensation for 22 to 2023. Note that there's been no change to this probably for a few years. So at some point, if the board would like to look into that further, we certainly can, just to see where we're at. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Aaron, second by Gail. Any discussion? And again, no change for this year. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Board member committee assignments. I did have a few board members reach out to me about these. I worked with Dr. Leck a little bit trying to, some people were on a few more, kind of as some board members went off, other people got moved around, tried to balance it as best as possible, but I've had a couple requests, so I will take those into consideration, but if we could just approve what's here, and then if there's any change, we could bring that back on a consent agenda, or we could delay it. What are the board's wishes? I've had 2 requests, so one to someone to keep on the committee that they were on, and another one to be, yes, Jason.
So what would be the process if we would make changes after tonight? The process would be just to revise the committee list?
Probably just put under consent agenda, yeah.
Okay.
So I probably wouldn't take anyone off of it, but I
I think you
might.
requested change, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Melissa, we can hear you.
I would like to wait on that because I would like to request
Okay.
changes myself, and if there's others that we want to request changes, if we could vote on that next board meeting.
Yep. Yeah, I'm fine with that, and I think, is there anything that's going to be meeting before then? I don't think there's anything that's going to be meeting before then, so I think we're okay. If you do have some changes, some of the changes we may not always be able to accommodate just because we can't have one board member on 5 committees either. We need to spread it out a little bit, and so I think some of you probably have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, and so you can probably fit well on some different committees. Jason, go ahead.
Can I make a suggestion for next or subsequent years? Would there be an issue with us bringing this topic up at our June meeting? And then we do some sort of either, not volunteering, that's the wrong word, but, organizing, and then we get maybe our top 5 to you, and then we go from there, as opposed to, because then hopefully when it would come to our annual meeting, it would be, that's just a thought I had.
Yeah, we can certainly do that next year. I don't think that's an issue. Yep, and some of these committees meet and that's the other two, kind of trying to balance the work. Some won't meet at all this whole next year, and some will meet twice a month. So also we used to pay, historically, we paid board members per meeting that they went to, and then it was like, well, what if you're only able to make half of it? Or then Amy would have to work with spreadsheets, and it got complicated, so we just went with a flat payment for school board members' fees, or to compensation, and so we got rid of that structure. And then it wasn't always fair because some board members had a lot more meetings and got paid more that month, and so we just kind of eliminated that. So historically, we tried to balance it a little bit now too, making sure that people's time is being respected. So if you have a specific request, get it to me. Go ahead, Gail.
I also wonder too, if we're doing this strengths and leadership, if we could look at what we have as board members bringing strengths and how those strengths might best be served in the committees that we are appointed to. That would just be a thought I'd have.
Yep, that's a good we're going to do for our retreat. Yep, good point, Gail. All right, we will, if there's a motion to place that on the next agenda, or just table it. Go ahead, Jason.
I would move that we table the board member committee assignments, part of our annual meeting till our next board meeting.
Okay, is there a second? Do we have a second? Okay, it's tabled. That's all we need, right? We don't need to vote. It was Dan, I think, yep. No, I don't think you voted for a table. Do we vote for, I don't think we vote for a table. I think you just table it. As long as there's a second, I think it's done, so. Would we like a vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Tabled. Okay, moving on. Board Education Annual Plan. Did you look kind of through that, and it covered a lot of the topics? Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Aaron? Second by Jason? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to new business consent agenda. Is there a motion? Or is there anything you'd like to pull off? Gail? Motion by Gail? Second by Jason? Or did you have something to pull off?
I just had a question on D12, so I don't know if it's appropriate to get a second and then start discussion to pull it off, or what first? Or we can clarify it now? Or?
If you just have something really quick, otherwise if you want to discuss it, we would pull it off.
No, it's pretty quick. I just was wondering, you
So,
know,
is that your second, though?
Yeah,
Did you second?
I'll
Okay, second. Okay, discussion, go ahead then.
Sorry. You know, we talk about principals, portfolios, and then there's two administrators listed here. Is this the bulk of the portfolios? I guess what I'm saying is there a list of portfolios per administrator anywhere?
Right, these are, what is represented in D12 are the homeless coordinator and the foster care liaison, Title I coordinator, EL coordinator. Those are ones that we need to specifically, either by policy or by law. Along with some other ones that you see, Title IX, District 504, non-discrimination, those are all by policy or law. That doesn't encapsulate all of the portfolio assignments. I can certainly present the different portfolio assignments, but we try to balance those out based on workload. Some of these responsibilities, it's kind of similar, to be honest, to committee work. Some are very onerous in terms of time commitments and some less so. So the list of them may seem different, but the work burden is pretty similar. But these are required to recognize, which is why they're listed separately. Maybe a longer answer than your question.
Any other questions about the new business consent agenda at all? Okay, so we have a motion by Gail, second by Jason. We had some discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now you turn 2 pages. And moving on to our regular meeting. Is there any correspondence? No correspondence. Board Education. Educational competency, role of the library media specialist. Jennifer Gall, will you please come forward and talk to us about the library media specialist position?
Okay, to start with, I'm going to pass 2 sheets around. If you just take one and keep them moving around, that would be great. And I would just like to introduce myself. I think I know all of you, but I'm Jennifer Gall, and I am the middle school librarian at Jamestown Middle School, and it's a new position for me, and so coming into a new role in the school system, I've just realized that there are some things that some people might not know about what it means to be a school librarian. So wanted to take some time today to share some information with you. So thank you very much for letting me come and talk to you today. The thing that I'd like to start out with is that, like I said, there might be some misconceptions about what a librarian does. And first thing is that I want you to remember that we are no longer just the keeper of the books. There is a lot that goes into our jobs, but I think that some people still think of a school librarian sometimes as somebody who hides in the corner and quietly does his or her job and doesn't interact with people as much as we really need to be. So I wanted to talk about that. We teach literacy on many different levels as school librarians, and we play a very important role in the schools for that reason. We teach information literacy. We teach reading comprehension, digital citizenship, and we also, along with that, want to foster a love of reading and learning. And so there's a lot that goes into our jobs, as I've come to learn this year through the coursework that I'm taking. So the next slide, I do have a presentation. If you wanted to turn and take a look at that, we'll refer to that quite a bit. So why are strong school library programs important? Research consistently shows that when children have access to good libraries with plenty of good books and with adequate staffing, they read more and thus do better on reading tests. For children of poverty, libraries are typically the only possible source of reading material. And so this is one of the things that makes a school librarian's job so important. You know, we need to work really hard to curate materials, not just print books, but digital resources for students who don't have access to that in their homes. And so that's one of the reasons that our job is so important and something that we always want to remember as we do our work every day. I have another quote. What libraries and librarians can do. Libraries provide a space and place for personalized learner success. Learners are encouraged to explore questions of personal and academic relevance. And that's one of the beautiful things about any library, and particularly a school library. It gives young people a place to go to explore, to read what they want to read, and to, you know, interact with each other. And so that's something that we as librarians want to continue to do in our schools, is create an environment that is invigorating for kids. And I have a short video here that I think really speaks to our role. And I wonder to get to the right. Let's see if it'll play it for us. Oh. Quentin. Where did it go? Can't get it to play.
That's a good question.
Oh, there it is. Get some volume.
Should be going through. Oh, has it changed?
There we go.
I think the libraries became one of those programs where there was a little vagueness to what their role was.
You know something, you need the librarian more now than you did 10 years ago. It's a growing profession. It's not a profession that's going down at all. Because if we can keep them reading, the success is there, and we know that.
What does this mean when it walks into your school? What does this mean when a kid doesn't want to look at anything but this? How do you balance that against what you need in a physical format for reading?
Should the name change? Should the job description change? What does the space look like?
It has evolved from a dark place where you go and pull out books and look through cards to a place where it's full of the latest technology. It's limitless. Any subject any kid is interested in, we can find it.
If this is the biggest classroom in every public school in this great country, then why aren't we maximizing it?
I remember going to the card catalog and finding things and microfiche and everything, and kids come in here and they can find things at their fingertips in an instant.
No matter what the format or the device, you are teaching kids how to navigate information, do research, have fun, and care about learning. To take different views, to take facts, to check out what's credible, what's not credible. That's so important today.
I bought right into that and just love that just as much because I think that that's definitely a literacy that they have to learn as well.
That's our content area. We teach how to learn. Consistently, we see an impact, a direct impact in settings where there's a school librarian.
And the proof, you know, is again in the reading scores. And we have that.
someone working in that capacity in the school. Reading scores are higher, kids do better.
And then you're done with that, I probably got a piece of questions.
If you had a reading teacher and a tech integrator and a school librarian, and you had to make a difficult choice, I'd still keep the school librarian because the school librarian is going to combine all of those.
Come on, there.
These people are completely integrated into the learning of kids across technologies, and they are one of the great team builders of our schools. When they have the freedom to do good work, it's transformative.
That's why I think that the libraries in today's public school systems and all across the country should be the epicenter of real meaningful learning and for kids are having great experiences.
You can see this is the focal point. When you walk in this building and you around that corner, this is what you see. And they are rushing to get in. We want them to be excited about this.
This is the place where the library should be. I think that the more access and visibility that we have, the more chances that they'll come through the doors and spend some time.
We're no longer a storage place of books and materials. We're a vibrant, interactive place where kids can come, they can create, they are empowered to learn on their own. We set no ceilings on what they can learn.
All right, so you can see that the work that we do, it expands beyond the walls of our library in today's education world, and so that's kind of exciting. A couple of other things that I wanted just to mention as we continue on here. Just on the screen, it says that the libraries are a shush no more. It's a vibrant place to be. We have flexible spaces. We really want to be focusing on that collaborative effort among the teachers, and so we need to be reaching out and doing things with classroom teachers to help them discover what tools are available to them in the global society and through our technology. And just another thing that I've found as I've talked with people is people don't understand that in order to be a fully certified school librarian, we need 24 graduate credits beyond our regular master's degree or bachelor's degree that we currently hold. And so it's not just a simple shift for people to become school librarians. There's a lot that goes into it. And so we want to be remembering that as we, as professionals, also reach out and do our best to collaborate with our teachers and get as many students into our libraries as we possibly can. So co-teaching becomes a very big part of what we do. So at JPS, we're really fortunate to have great administrative support. We've always had that, and we will continue to have that. But for a school library program to continue to be effective, we need to have that administrative support, funding, which we get, appropriate staffing, flexible scheduling, collaborative culture, and current materials and technology. And so those are other things that we as librarians are working toward every day and curating those things for our kids. You have in front of you a couple of the documents that we use. I'll just briefly touch on those because I know you do have a long meeting today, but just letting you know that we are guided also by standards. We have national library standards that we follow, but we also have our state library standards that we need to meet. And so we as a library team, we meet in our professional learning community, and we work on those standards and what our priorities are. So we also are driven by standards. And so that's another reason that we need to be teaching those kids those standards and working with other teachers. So those things are important to remember also as we continue on our work together. So I do have a couple of links that Dr. Leck will share with you through this presentation, but I just wanted you to get a little snippet of what our lives are like in the library. And it's not a quiet place. We want it to be vibrant and exciting, and we want you to come in also and see what we're doing in our libraries. So thank you for your time today, and we would like to extend an invitation at any time to come and visit our spaces. So thank you, and thanks for your support.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yep.
Any questions? Gail,
Question,
go ahead.
Gail? Hi.
I would just, as the niece of two school librarians, I would like to thank all three of you for what you do and what you mean to so many students. I was a student who found myself in books in the library in the community I was at. So thank you. Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Leck?
Not a question, just a comment. Appreciation that you're here and sharing a little bit of the shifting role. Sometimes when we do think about librarians, library media specialists, we think of librarian, and there's so much more to the position than what sometimes maybe what we think, which is one of the reasons why we asked you to be here and share a little bit about those shifting roles, but also recognize that we have the full team.
We do.
Representing library media specialists in the district. And so thank you to all of you for the work that you do.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the summer as well, so thank you very much. Yes, a warm day. Moving on to reports. Superintendent's report, Dr. Leck.
Thank you. You have my written report. I will breeze through some of this. I wrote a lot. I noticed as I was working through this, I wrote a lot. And so there's a little bit to get through, but I'll kind of skim over certain areas a little bit more than others. You have some action items. Kindergarten enrollment update, 118, which puts us on the right path. We are back at 8 sections, as we talked about before. And I broke down where we see those. It is still a very small group, but we are at 8 sections. As you can see, that puts us right in that 8-section mark. Moving on to staff recommendations, you'll be acting later on. I outlined a little bit of information related to the Courtney Perleyberg, who'll be recommended to fill a vacant kindergarten position. That would be at Washington Elementary. This is an alternative access license, which is a little bit different than what we've dealt with in terms of elementary staff in the past. It is not different than what we've done in other positions. We have done alternate access license in the past. But I think what this really does speak to us is, as Mr. Rohr has shared with the board in his recent workshop that he attended on teacher shortages, this is likely to be more of the norm to even at the elementary level to see alternative access license. We've seen it more in CTE, but I think it speaks to the challenges that we see with staffing. You have an extended contract for Mrs. Mindy Skunberg, and I just want to highlight that this is an additional 5 days, so 10 total. This is already an extended contract that you've approved. This would be 5 additional days, and the reason for that is related to we haven't been able to find a full-time counselor for that ESSER-funded position, so this would help to bridge that gap a little bit for the summer planning anyway. Parental leave, Cody already provided a little bit of information on this from the perspective of staff, but we've had 5 staff members already that we know of that would access this parental leave. I think that speaks to a few things. It speaks to the need, and I also think it speaks to the shifting demographics of our staff. The staff is getting younger, just a lot of shifting and transition. But if approved for the second reading, it's going to have a significant impact on our staff, which I think it shows that we are a little bit being proactive and a little bit ahead of this particular game. I won't go through all the facility project updates unless there are specific questions, but all of the projects are progressing really very well. I appreciate, and I know Dr. Larson spoke to this, but I appreciate the progress reports that Consolidated Construction provides. Gives you a sense of what's happening in those buildings and each of those projects. At Gustner, they are, heavily working, getting a lot of demo taking place and getting the preliminary work done there. So the plan for Gustner is for that to be, the classrooms to be available in mid-August. And I know that's late, and actually it's in the middle school also. I know that's a little bit later than I'm sure many staff would like to see, but we have to get the work done. It's just a big project at both Gustner and the middle school to get done. But those, I just talked to Consolidated Construction earlier today, and they're still trending on that timeline, so that's good news. I outlined the contingency balances. Those are all areas that you've seen already. It's just written down, but we've talked about those in different and different board items. The middle school project, you can see, is progressing pretty nicely. You see all of our, or many of our windows already boarded up, and they do that so they can, once the panes come, that they can more quickly install. So that's something that we're working on now. They're working on now. One change has come actually from one of our contractors, and we haven't seen this yet, or you haven't seen this in a change order yet, but it's great news. One of the contractor targeted some significant savings related to an 800 amp disconnect. Now, most of the cost was related to conduit and labor, but it's not often that we get change orders that save us money. And so he made a recommendation to the architect. The architect approved, the engineers approved those changes, and that's going to result in the savings of around $26,000 to the district in that particular project, because they were able to, they approved the changes that he was recommending. We do still have some areas that we're going to need to have a change order on, with some classrooms actually directly right above us, these 4 classrooms for VRF systems. We have 2. We need 2 more, and then other electrical work needs to be done there. But that'll be something coming in the future at Jamestown Middle School. But that's progressing again. You're looking at substantial completion by 9:30, but the ability to occupy in the middle of August for that project as well. And I'll just highlight very quickly all the meeting minutes that we have. We meet on each of these projects twice a month, and the minutes are included there. They do a great job of keeping us up to date, asking us questions, making sure that we're on board, and that everything is connected to the timelines that we see. And they've been great. I appreciate Consolidated very much. The last facility item that I have is we're still working with Interstate Engineering on the Lincoln parking lot project. That is still a go. There were some things that we were hoping to see with some change there, but at this point, we need to make the commitment to move forward, or that isn't going to get done. So still working on that. I'll continue to update you as I have information. With the ad hoc committee, later on in the agenda, you're going to be acting on a policy recommendation for food service. Our ad hoc committee met at the end of June. We looked at the current legislation that was recently passed called the Keep Kids Fed Act. We talked about 2 different areas in previous superintendent reports that we were really concerned about. One was the waiver for nutrition standards, and the second was universal meals. In the conversations we've had at the national level, they're both very close. It's kind of like 1A and 1B concerns. The first, though, was making sure that we had the nutrition standards, that we had a waiver, and that's a supply chain issue. To be a reimbursable meal, they need to meet certain nutrition standards. And with the supply chain concerns that we're seeing, we may not get certain items. And so we've had the Keep Kids Fed Act allows those nutrition standards to be waived again for this next year. That was probably 1A. 1B was universal meals, and that wasn't approved. So as a district, as a community, we need to make that transition back to paid meals. And so that's a shift for our families. We have families and children that have never paid for a meal in our district. If you're in the 1st grade, last year, you never paid for a meal, and that's some of our families have never had that. So through that conversation, our committee, our ad hoc committee, and that include Mr. Rohr, Mr. Roberts, Cindy, our new food service director, Sally, and myself, we were all at consensus that the existing procedures that we have for alternative meals are a bit antiquated, and we need to make a shift. That for a few different reasons. But in our current environment, in our inflationary environment, while we haven't seen a lot of alternative meals historically, we all recognize the reality that we may see more. And so a policy shift was pertinent. And so the recommendations that we're making is to move on from alternative, that provision for alternative meals with a negative balance. And we'll work more on communicating on when any time below, any time a balance goes into the negative, we'll work more on communicating. And then the elimination of access to a la carte or seconds, larger meal requests, if they're in a negative balance. So that's what the policy recommends, is to shift from those alternative meals and work more in communication for like I said, a lot of different reasons, but seeing in the environment that we're in, that the policy that we had in place, while it's been effective, it isn't the right policy by the committee, committee's recommendation any longer. I'm just going to pause if there were other board members, if there's anything you wanted to add, those that were on the ad hoc committee. Okay.
I just have a quick question. What sort of communication plan do we have with just all of our families? Because I have a student, it's not really in my regular bill pay setup right now anymore. And so just how are we going to just start reminding people?
Yep, that was one of the areas that we did talk about in our ad hoc committee was a communications plan. We outlined who was going to communicate to which stakeholders. And so we'll be getting something out if this policy is adopted. The return well, we wanted to first have this policy adopted as a first reading, then we can communicate out what the procedures are and what people can expect moving forward on top of the policy change, but also the shift from universal meals. Other questions on that, or can I move on? So we did get our 14-passenger buses. There are quite a few requirements for that, which I've outlined. That includes a defensive driver course once every 5 years. Even though you can drive the 14-passenger bus with the Class D license, you do have to, once every 5 years, have that defensive driving class, plus annual safety training. And Sally and I had a meeting with Dietrich's this morning, and they've agreed that they would work with us to help provide some of that training when they can. So that's certainly a benefit for us. The other thing that we need to look at is to be a part of, and this is all in North Dakota Century Code, but to be a part of a random drug and alcohol testing for any individual driving students as part of the bus program. So that's something that we're shifting to do. We've already worked on physicals and trying to organize all of that stuff in the training, but just wanted to make you aware that those different expectations exist. Very quickly, Board Education Annual Plan that you have already approved. One of the areas, if you have not completed the StrengthsFinder assessment, as has already been referenced, I ask that you do that and then send that report to me as soon as you can, and I will compile that information and share that out. I'm doing the same with the administrators or the newer administrators that have not served, and I'll share an example of all of those as part of a future board education. I shared with the board a memo and a request to the Jamestown City Fire and Policy and Police Committee, and I attended their meeting along with Dr. Larson, and we provided a statement to the city about the school resource officer and the ability to add an FTE. When that's going to be able to happen is up in the air. They have staffing issues of their own and budgetary issues of their own, but they know that it's a need for us, and they agreed as a committee that it was a need in our community. When we get to that point, we don't know, but hopefully that's sooner rather than later to add that additional SRO. The return to learning plan that is part of your agenda. Just a reminder, we're not recommending any changes. We don't see that currently as a need to implement any mitigation strategies or anything like that. It is a requirement, as you remember, of the ESSER program. We accepted ESSER 3 funding, which means every 6 months we need to review and or revise our return to learning and continuity of services plan. We have to do that every 6 months until September of 2024. So you'll see that in July and January meetings moving forward through September 2024. The bank deposits that'll come up later, I've outlined a transition there that we're recommending into the general fund to Unison Bank in the near future. That just takes time, so we have a recommended motion there. But we see that as a benefit to the district based on the existing fee structure that's in place, and we think that as a fiduciary, that a shift to Unison Bank would sometime throughout this year, like I said, it'll take a transition, but that would be in the best interest of the district. So with that, I would stand for questions. Always longer than I anticipated, sorry.
Aaron, go ahead.
Just a question on the window completion in, I think it was November. Any mitigations or contingencies that you see there that affect operations in the building?
As it extends on, the classrooms will be completed earlier than that. We, as you can see, my office is boarded up and I think Amy's going to take some paint to it so it looks like we can have at least a horizon in there. But that's where we'll see the classrooms will be done by the time school starts. Fingers crossed. Construction always has shifting timelines, but we're anticipating that a classroom would be completed, that it would be central office that has to wait.
Any other questions from Dr. Luck about his report? Jason?
Kindergarten enrollment of 118. We admit that that's down. Do we feel this is an outlier year in some regards? And what are we doing to maybe investigate why this is, or just to make sure that we're covering our bases for the future years to see if this is kind of just one of those years, or if there's something we need to fix, or any thought given to that?
So yeah, good question. So we've had a demographic study, and that showed significantly higher on average class sizes than 118. What we need to do is, once we have all of the different options that our families have, whether that be private education, home education, public education, looking at, I would take this, at least of now, to be an outlier year, but we need to tally up what the impact, if there's any change between how many families are choosing home education, how many are choosing different private education, and to see if there is an escalation there or a shift there. But I would say it looks like an outlier based on what we've seen. But we'll collect that data and share that with you as we know more. Answer your question.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on. D, new business, nothing under activities, nothing under buildings and grounds, and nothing under curriculum assessment instruction. Number 4, bank deposits. Is there a motion to approve the checking and savings accounts as outlined? So motion by Gail? Second by Aaron. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the checking and savings accounts. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Go ahead, Dr. Luck.
And that's with the recognition that we'll be shifting throughout the year, correct?
Yep, as we, kind of what you outlined there, yep. Number 5, finance. For informational, we have the 2021 to 2022 general fund balance and the 2021 to 2022 summary of debt. C, is there a motion to approve the monthly financials? Motion by Aaron. Second by Steve. Any discussion? Gail?
I'm just inquiring, I noticed that our ending fund balance was significantly higher this year, and if there's an explanation as to why, or if we have things that will be flowing out soon.
Yep, good question. Sally, go ahead.
The ending fund balance is much higher, Gail, and as I get into the budget, you'll see that it's the ESSER dollars that we're using, and as we get into the draft budget, you'll see that those funds will be transferred over to the building fund to pay for the capital projects. So.
Yep, good question, Gail. So we have a motion and a second to approve the monthly financials. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. D, approval of is there a motion to approve the 2022 to 2023 draft budgets and subsequent executive summary and draft budgets? Motion by Aaron, second by Dan. Any discussion? Did you want to walk through those now, Sally? A little bit?
I certainly can.
Just kind of,
The general fund draft
yeah, go ahead.
draft budget, this is the draft budget for July. You'll see, in September, I'll present the final budgets. But what I do here, Gail just asked a question about the ESSER dollars. This is the budget without any, ESSER funding in it. The only thing that it does have in this budget is to transfer that large sum for the capital projects. So on the bottom of the draft budget for general fund, you see the deficit, which really isn't a deficit, of the $5 million. That was discussed with the board, 70%, of the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 to be transferred over to the projects. You can see on the bottom, and, thanks for Aaron, so that, that we put this on the bottom so you could see, that it's not really a deficit, that ESSER 1, 2, and 3 of funds that we have requested June 30th. We haven't got all the money yet, but requested and will receive shortly all of this dollars. So we received ESSER dollars of, over $5 million, $5,689,000 that we will have in general fund. And with the approval of these draft budgets, we will transfer $5 million over to building fund for those projects. So this is the draft, and it doesn't have any ESSER spending in it. Like I said, I'm keeping it simple, and then once, the ESSER dollars are spent, I'll bring, again, budget revisions to you. That's the general fund. It's a high-level overview. I can certainly go in more detail. Does anybody have any questions on that? Aaron?
We had talked previously about cash flow and if there was, just with the timing of these funds and how they were going to hit, and do you see any changes? We felt previously that we're covered under that. Do we still have that understanding?
Yes. The unfortunate timing of our fiscal year has shown the exact question, Gail, that you were referencing, is we brought in these dollars in last fiscal year, and now we're going to expend them in next fiscal year. So that's the reason for, what Sally was explaining. So it's kind of an unfortunate timing, but the reality doesn't change. From a cash flow standpoint, we're going to be just fine.
And if, the board remembers last year we had a large carryover also, a 1.5 million. So the cash flow will work. Unless the bills come in really fast. Really fast. We're gonna be fine. The other budgets, the next one is a special reserve, which is just a little savings account that if the board determined that they would like to transfer some of those monies to general fund, 50%, which is what is budgeted, but that would take a board resolution to transfer money out of the special reserve into general fund. And it hasn't been used for years. A little savings account, I think. The building fund budget, obviously, that is where, capital projects and all the details that Dr. Luck has shared with you on the Gusner project in the middle school. All of those type of things are in this budget, along with some, maintenance on fire protection, all of those things that, Dr. Luck has done a good job of updating that, and the committee has met. So those facility projects are all found in this building fund. The revenue, which you will approve a certificate of levy that I present to the county for the county money. And so this revenue budget reflects about a 3% increase, estimating. Don't have any idea where it's going to be, but last year I presented a 3% and it worked out fairly closely. The times have changed where we used to be able to sit down with the county auditor and say, yeah, Sal, this is what I think it's going to be, and the timing of everything, they're not going to know anything until December, long past when we need to know how much money. So we just have to do the best job that we can. And when we present the final budget certificate of levy in October, the county auditor may have a closer idea, but I projected 3% last year, and that's currently what I'm projecting in this budget. And we'll see if that changes for the final. And that's the building fund. The debt service budget is our budget where we pay any debt that we have, and you saw the summary of the debt. And so two items, we have the middle school green space debt that we transfer from the building fund. That was budgeted in the building fund years ago when that project was foreseen. And then the current certificate of indebtedness that the board went to, and that's budgeted in general fund. So these funds paid out of this are just transferred from building fund and general fund to make the payments. Any questions on that? The food service budget is salary and benefits, and obviously food, showing an increased cost in food. And Mr. Oster, before he left, presented this budget to me. And so I think it reflects fairly accurately the projected expenses of food service budget, we hope. Yeah.
Sally? I do have a question about that. I think, we've all seen in the news the rising costs of food and probably some unknowns and hard. Do we feel pretty comfortable where we're at, or could, I know it's hard to project for a whole year.
Yeah, Joe did visit with some people and increase the food costs. I don't have that percentage right in front of me, but, as best he could estimate, it's, but he did have a large increase in there.
Dr. Lick?
Yeah, I want to reiterate that. I think Mr. Oster did a great job
Yeah.
with doing the best that he could. There is a shifting dynamic that none of us can imagine. If you look at the cost of food, and we know that just from going and buying groceries, we know the difference. But they're at the higher level that's a total unknown. And this food service budget is built based on the best knowledge that we have. We talked about that before when we were looking at our hot lunch prices, our meal prices. And those are our best estimates right now based on what we can see. The greatest level of fluidity is going to come in this particular budget because we don't know. We don't know if costs stabilize. We don't know if they increase like they have exponentially in the last year, or we don't know if they are going to dip. But I would guess we're going to see a budget close to this or higher in terms of expenses.
Thank you. Jason, go ahead.
And I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask or bring this up, and I asked it in our ad hoc, do we know if any of this, with reinstituting meals, charged meals, does that impact the free and reduced program at all? And are we refocusing our efforts on getting those completed? Because I can see, with this increase in price, we've already, kind of conceded that it might cause issues for more families. So I think we should double our efforts on that front.
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things that I think our food service department, the individuals that work in that office have done a fantastic job of communicating with people and getting as many individuals to complete free and reduced lunch as possible. They've done a great job. And when we looked at when the pandemic hit and the shift to universal meals, what other school districts were seeing was not completing free and reduced, and their free and reduced lunch numbers went down substantially, and ours actually went up a little bit. And that was a product of them communicating with people about the importance of filling out, not just for them, but for the district. And so I would anticipate them continuing to do that. But for the public watching, the completion of free and reduced lunch meals that application is extremely important. It's important to the district's budget. We're funded based partially from a federal level. Our Title I program is based on free and reduced lunch count because that's considered the poverty rate that they use. We are funded to a degree at the state level, which is our highest percentage of funding. There is a component for poverty there as well, for at-risk in our at-risk modifier. So that's an area that we see a direct significant benefit from. And just encourage people, not only do it for your own families, but there's a direct benefit to the district as well to complete free and reduced lunch applications. And we just need to continue to communicate that we're, number one, going back to this and that people need to fill out those free and reduced lunch. Second, we need to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to communicate when we know those families are in need. Our counselors play an important role in ensuring that people know that program exists. But beyond that, we need to be proactive as an institution and supporting the ways that we can change free and reduced lunch, because an opt-in program leaves a lot of families out. Because this is especially true in North Dakota, and I'm sure it's true in other states, but we really see it. People don't, and this was a similar conversation I had with Senator Hoven's office. People don't want to, especially North Dakotans, we're North Dakota proud, and we don't like to ask for that additional entitlement or that handout, or what people would feel as a handout instead of a support, and we don't ask for that. And there needs to be a process that's different than an opt-in that just recognizes the people that need the support, and then finding out how we can do that differently or better, I think is a really important shift.
Aaron, did you have anything? Any other discussion? Amy?
Add to Dr. Lex's thing is that registration promotes it with all new families.
Registration.
So when we register new families, we do talk about free and reduced, and we try to encourage as much as we can, and that's probably a big piece of why we get a lot of our families at least completing that paperwork. And like I said, even if it doesn't, you know, when I've looked at the paperwork, and I don't think people realize what you can make and still qualify. And so I think it's important that families educate themselves on what that process looks like and what those amounts are before they qualify.
And if any families have questions, just contact the central office and they'll help them through the paperwork.
I would guess, you know, good and bad about, you know, the free meals. You know, people right now are struggling with grocery costs, but the good side too, I mean, people have to fill out that paperwork now, and the federal funding, they were allowing to go back a couple years, but so, because it does impact lots of funding, like Dr. Lex said. Okay. Food service. Activities, the athletic budget has not changed from last year to this year. The budget that you look at is a summary budget of the middle school activities and athletics, and high school activities and athletics, and also revolving funds. Any questions on that? General fund does, oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, we did a grant on esports a couple years ago. It was a successful program, got really good participation. Last year we didn't do it, and I contacted some folks, and the rationale was that they didn't have a budget. And I think there was also a coaching staffing issue. Is that included in with this activity stuff, a plan to fund the esports program?
So we set the budgetary amounts, and the programs need to work within the confines of that budget. If we had an advisor, there isn't a reason why we would not fund the program. So really, in my mind, the lack of an advisor is what's holding us up and not a budgetary commitment. If we had an advisor, we would have a program.
Good question. Any other questions? Jason, go ahead.
The buses, 14 passenger buses, do we have somewhat of an idea of cost savings to the district for those? Or if not, that's fine. I'm just, you know, looking to hopefully that's going to make a difference.
Well, not a cost analysis. It really depends on you know, how much they're utilized and what programs they're utilized for. We could certainly look at something at the end of the year for that, but I can tell you the cost to, you know, pay a stipend for our staff to drive as opposed to the contractor to drive, it's going to result in significant savings. You know, beyond that, it's the bottleneck of access to drivers. We've already heard from the transportation limitations where we haven't been able to go to certain events, or we haven't been able to do certain programs. We just don't have drivers. Our districts can't provide drivers for us. So I think that's a bigger benefit, but absolutely, is there going to be a cost savings? Yeah.
Yeah, there will, because, you know, just as an example, you all heard about Dietrich's and the bus drivers and not having vehicles. So sometimes in order for students to be able to participate, we had to rent vehicles. So, you know, that was a cost. So there's going to be a savings there also. Okay, and the health insurance budget, which we had a great year, thankfully. So this budget reflects similar to last year's budget, without the $250,000 that the board contributed to last year's budget. But fortunately, we had a great year, and we did, as reported by the Health Insurance Committee, as Dan last month, the rates for the employees will stay the same. So I see some smiling people out there. The last budget is the James Valley Career and Tech Center budget, which Mr. Adam Gaylor pulls together for me with some assistance, and those are obviously salary and benefits, and for those programs up at the CTC. And that is That's all I have.
So we have a motion for approval of the 2022 to 2023 draft budgets and subsequent executive summary and draft budgets. Is there any other discussion or questions for Sally? If there's no more discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on for approval of the 2022 to 2023 certificate of levy. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Approval to submit the Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota Caring Foundation grant in the amount of $5,000. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Second by Aaron. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 6, personnel. Approval to hire Courtney Perlyberg as kindergarten teacher, salary of $45,207.77 at Washington Elementary for the 2022 to 2023 school year, upon a successful background check and receipt of licensure. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Second by Steve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. B, approval of 5 additional counseling days for Mindy Skunberg at the high school for the 2022 to 2023 school year at a salary of $1,415.70. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Second by Aaron. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. I guess we all moved. Motion carries. And number 7, policy and procedures. A, approval of the second reading of DDAE, parental leave policy, and subsequent approval of the second reading of DDAE-AR, parental leave regulation. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron, second by Gail. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. B, approval of the second reading of DDA, sick leave policy, and subsequent approval of the second reading of DDA-AR, sick leave requests. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron? Second by Jason. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. C, approval of the second reading of DDC unpaid leave. Is there a motion? Motion by Jason. Second by Steve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. D, approval of the required 6-month review of return to learning and continuity of services plan. This is the one we have to do every 6 months. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Gail. Second by Aaron. And note that there's no changes in this since the last 6 months. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. E, approval to rescind IB food service program policy and subsequent approval to rescind IB-BR meal charging procedure with A, review of removal of IB-E1 free and reduced price meal eligibility appeals, and B, review of removal of IE-E5 food services lunch fund refunds. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron, second by Gail. Any discussion about E, number 1, A, and B? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. F, approval of the first reading of ABEC school meal charge policy. And number 1, approval of the first reading of ABEC-AR. And subsequent A, review of ABEC-E outstanding balance letter. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 8, approval of tuition agreements. Number 1, approval of a tuition agreement for a 7th grade student to attend Montpelier Public Schools for the 2022 to 2023 school year. Motion by Gail. Second by Steve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 2, approval of a tuition agreement for a 7th grade student to attend Pingree Buchanan Public Schools for the 2022 to 2023 school year. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron, second by Jason. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 9, approval of the following handbooks. Approval of non-teaching professional benefits handbook, approval of teachers handbook, approval of support staff handbook, approval of directors, coaches, and advisors handbook, approval of activity guide and code of conduct for parents and students, approval of high school handbook, approval of Blue Jay Academy handbook, approval of transportation handbook, approval of home education handbook, and approval of library handbook, 1 through 10. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron, second by Gail. Any discussion on these? I did send that one question mark. Does that just need a date to fill in?
We shifted, you changed that.
Got
That's
that.
been
Okay,
updated.
okay.
Yep.
There was like a question mark, something, yeah, so. I checked it. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to recognize Amy for all her hard work on these handbooks.
Yes, thank you, Amy. And I really, really, really appreciate the highlighted changes because it saves a lot of reading from year to year, and then I know what has changed as well, so I do appreciate that. But yeah, there was a list of them this year, so. So we have a motion and a second to approve 1 through 10 in handbooks. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Nothing under other. Any items for future agenda? Jason?
Board education, what have you, I really would like us to learn or be aware of the ins and outs of potentially adding pre-K at some point. I think it's something that our district is worth exploring. I don't know much about it. I don't know if the rest of the board's interested in at least learning about that, but I think that's something down the road I can see our district really needing and maybe wanting to implement. So any other thoughts, or if I just research it on my own, that's fine, but.
And there may be some legislative funding things too to talk about along with some of those things, so. Any other items for future agenda? Okay. If there's anything that you can think of, let Dr. Luck or myself know. Meetings to be scheduled. School board meeting on Monday, August 15th. Now, just remember there's not the one on the 1st, so August 15th at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room at the middle school. And B, back to school breakfast on Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022 at 7:30 a.m. in the high school commons area. Monthly superintendent evaluation. It's section 2, board relations, and section 4, curriculum and student support services. There be no further business before the board. The meeting is adjourned.